Well, welcome everyone to the basics of remodeling, building and remodeling green. We're going to be talking about the health pillar today. My name is Brett Little, and I'm the program manager here at the nonprofit, the GreenHome Institute. Our mission is to empower people to make healthier and more sustainable choices in the renovation and construction of the places we live. This course is approved for continuing education units, lead green associates, among many others, as well as our GreenHome Institute certified professional, and I've got the wrong logo up there, but this is under the health category, as well as AIA Health, Welfare, and Safety, which may make it applicable to your state-based design or contractor license. We're so glad you could be joining us again for our topics on the 5 pillars of green building. In our previous sessions, we covered energy. In our moving forward sessions, we're going to cover materials, water, and place. Today, we're going to be talking about health and how health fits in with all these other pillars and how it might be a benefit or a negative, where you always have to make those trade-offs and those choices. So just like if you remember back, if you did join us for energy, just like in energy, you need to start with a level of awareness. What is going on? If you have a remodeling project or a new project, it doesn't matter. You have to have that awareness and that understanding to understand what opportunities and challenges exist for health. So at the same time, you have someone coming in to do the energy audit, the blower door testing, all of the energy inspections. They should also be doing health inspections, and you should not neglect that. And in fact, by only focusing on energy and leaving health out, in the past, we have created a lot of problems because sometimes making homes more energy efficient can harm the health. In other ways, it helps. And then also, when you do an audit or an inspection or even a plan review of a new home, again, if you leave health off and nobody says anything, somebody who doesn't know the difference, your clients, who just don't understand sustainability, may not know that you didn't review that aspect. And so that's another problem, that people just assume you've looked at all these things. So these items that we talked about in the energy side of things, they are going to help with health. The duct blaster testing, right? Having proper airflow through our duct systems saves energy. We talked about that in the last session, but most importantly, it's a comfort issue. It's getting proper air and ventilation around the house, proper humidity removal, very important. But when we're doing our energy auditing, what could be a problem, especially on existing older homes? What do you think might be a concern or an issue there that you have to think about that could negatively impact health? So those of you who said asbestos nailed it, and maybe you looked ahead. But the thing is that anyone who's doing a blower door test in an existing older home should be following the BPI protocols. They should be looking for that zolinite in the attic. They should be looking for that asbestos duct boots. You don't want to shake that stuff or knock it loose. You could be talking about thousands of dollars in damage or health issues. So just be careful that those things are remediated or safe before you have, and make sure you ask your auditor before they come in that they know what they're doing. Also, we're going to be, looking at a real cheap and easy thing you can do just right away. How do you know a bath fan is working properly? And so that is what we call the toilet paper test. And so that's simply just taking a piece of toilet paper, sticking it to the bath fan, and seeing if it holds. Now, that doesn't tell you a lot of other things we're going to talk about a little bit later as far as the CFM draw, but it's one quick way to evaluate a home prior to getting the diagnostic tools in place to really know specifically what the numbers are and what the problem is. So on that note, that's where you have an auditor who's there doing the energy inspection, also testing the range hood, right? Testing it to make sure it's got the proper draw. And they're going to be testing the bath fans and testing the ventilation system if one exists. Again, just to make sure that it's got that proper draw. This needs to be done on new homes and on existing homes as well. All right, so let's take a look. You've seen this one before. You might know the answer, but from a health standpoint, is it different? Which one of these is better from a health standpoint and why? Yes, exactly. So the one on the right, sealed combustion, right? It's getting the potentially toxic air that's coming from the water heater, from a gas water heater out. Again, we talked about this. You can see the open hole here on the one on the left, and you got the little energy symbol here because it's not as, it's a half sun, right? So that's indicating an energy penalty. It's not as energy efficient. So it's a 2-for-1. This is where the two programs work together and benefit each other. Also, you've got homes with gas stoves, even brand new gas stoves. You go in and you test the stove, you test the burners, and you get high emissions levels or potentially carbon monoxide levels as well. And so there's a lot of concerns, even with brand new stoves not being done right or installed right, that can cause all sorts of issues that should be tested. And then, of course, gas leaks. I can't even tell you how many gas leaks we find in brand new constructed homes with gas systems, right? Huge issues. The leaks are sometimes coming on the utility side of the meter, so it's their job to fix it. Sometimes it's coming from the furnace and water heater and stove and all over the place, right? Just bad workmanship. And we're seeing it more and more, unfortunately. And I've got the little place logo up there tilted because outside of what you can control on your project, what we have is a resource in there that Google went around and did some analysis and shown that there are gas leaks all over the place coming from our gas infrastructure that causes issues of methane leaking into the atmosphere, causing more global warming potential issues, and dollars wasted, as well as safety precautions. So this is outside of just internally in the house. These are problems everywhere. And moving forward with gas, one thing I hope that we never forget is the Merrimack Valley gas explosions. In 2018, somebody sent the wrong gas down a pipeline to these thousands of homes, causing furnaces and water heaters to explode. And this has happened in other cases, but not to this level before, right? And so imagine, sending the wrong gas, right? You push the wrong button. And there's these massive explosions. As far as I know, you cannot send the wrong electricity down the line. So we're very concerned from a health standpoint about gas in homes. And we think it's a source of pollution that needs to be removed. Obviously, from our energy efficiency section before energy pillar, we talk about the positives of electricity. And that's usually what gets people excited, not necessarily the negatives, but it's important to know the health and safety issues when we're dealing with gas, even to these extreme levels that we don't see too often. Other important things for testing is sound quality. Really important to have proper sound quality that can help with our comfort and our life. And so there are first strategies you can use. On the left, there's a device I have that can test sound. On the right now, we have smartphone apps that I have a link to from the CDC, NIOSH, where you can test sound and monitor it in each room to figure out what the sound issues are, and then put a plan together to fix them, both in new and existing construction. Radon, very important. The EPA has radon zones, but unfortunately, we see radon spiking even in the zones that aren't supposed to be problematic. And so those zones really need to be rethought. So we recommend radon testing on any and all projects. And there are different tests you can do. There are cheap tests you can pick up from your county health department. Home inspectors have tests as well that they can leave in the house for 3 days. And you should test during different seasons. Or you should just assume there's a radon problem, which is probably, in my opinion, the best way to go, or assume that there will be one, at some point. We're talking about doing moisture meter testing on homes and making sure that, there aren't moisture or humidity issues, and figuring out where they are and coming up with plans to remediate them. Now we've got lead in our pipes that we have to worry about. And so determining if there's a lead pipe coming to the house. Here in Michigan, we know Flint made a lot of headway with the lead pipe issue, which is really sad and unfortunate, and very clearly had a specific cause. But the reality is, in Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo and cities all over the country, Lead is actually more of an issue in our walls and in our soil in our older homes, in homes that are pre-1978. Much bigger problem than the lead in the pipes, and much more costly, and nobody to point the finger at. So we need to evaluate and inspect our homes that are pre-1978, or homes in urban areas that might be connected to lead pipes, test the water, and make sure that we're remediating it. We can't have green homes if children are being exposed to lead. It's just, that's impossible. There's no way. You can't mix the two whatsoever. So we got to do those lead tests. And knob and tube wiring in our older homes need to be evaluated. This is a fire hazard, and I believe an energy efficiency issue as well, but definitely a fire hazard. So again, evaluating that older wiring, removing it, and making sure that that's fixed in these older homes. And then water quality. Right here in Michigan, again, we are the canary in the coal mine for water quality. It started with Flint. Now it's PFAS, and we just know this is happening all over the country. We've got high chlorines in our water. We've got fluorides in our water. And so water needs to be tested for the health of your clients when you're doing a project to determine, do we need to do a remediation for water quality, not just for saving water. Real easy, but making sure smoke alarms not only function, that there's no recalls on them, but that they also have CO detectors, right? Carbon monoxide detectors. And so even in instances where the home is all electric, we saw just this year when the hurricanes tore through down south, even all electric homes brought in, there were power outages and people brought in something to stay warm, or in Texas, this happened when the freeze hit in Texas, or people bring in generators into their house and cause carbon monoxide issues. So we need to have carbon monoxide detectors, make sure they're working in all of our homes, especially placed near gas appliances and fireplaces. And we'd also recommend in gas homes low-level carbon monoxide detectors, because low-level carbon monoxide can cause flu-like symptoms, which is something you certainly don't want to be reporting right now, getting it confused with something much worse. So take a look for that. And then moving forward, I think we're going to be looking at both new and existing homes and buildings air quality testing. So on the expensive end, you're talking about full-blown testing that can give you a lot of different measures and data. But we're looking at industrial hygienists coming in. We're looking at them coming in and evaluating air quality in homes, all different metrics and measures. And these are one-time snapshots of what's going on, but having it done, after construction, having it done on existing buildings to put a plan together. This is going to be the next level, having this, air quality testing, and then it's sent back to a lab for analysis and reviewed. But with that being said, there are more and more devices coming on the market that are cheaper. And these devices can be easily placed in a house, synced up with a phone, and communicate with the owners or tenants on the air quality in an ongoing manner as well. So they can see what's going on right away. And these will give data outputs on all different metrics. And then they also try to evaluate if that's a bad thing or a good thing, and maybe even give a total score. It's a bit of the Wild West right now, I will say, in regards to this, because these scores and these things, everyone's trying to figure out what is the best level of air quality. How do you evaluate it? How do these different pollutants work together and harm each other, or impact each other for the best or the worst? But this is coming, and it's coming fast, and we need to be aware of that. And also, these things are going to give people informed data going all the way back, months, days, years, on all of these different metrics. So you'll be able to make an informed decision to say, hey, look, over the course of 3 or 4 months, I've had these issues with humidity or CO2. So now I better do something. Or maybe the construction practice that was done on my new home wasn't done so well, or maybe there was a problem, something went wrong. And now we can really know, what the issue is and address it. So we're, advocating that all builders and remodelers and designers put these types of devices in their homes for their clients to say, hey, it's not me saying I built it healthy or renovated it healthy, but look at, here's proof, right? And so we do have some of our members doing that, just leaving it as a gift to the client. And if you want to take it one step further, the reset certification standard is great because it gives you certified devices that you know are going to work better, that are tested, and it gives you a full certification on placement of these devices throughout the house strategically, so that they're in the right place and measuring things correctly. I think this is definitely, you know, the direction that we're going to be headed. And I've been using these myself, and I can tell you, I can't tell you that they're accurate, but what I can tell you is that they do adjust the way you would expect them to. So like if, you know, CO2 rises from more people coming in, that's very clear. Humidity rises from outdoor opening a window, or wildfire sets off PM 2.5. They do seem to indicate there are issues. Whether they're 100% accurate to the actual number in the air, I don't know, but I am excited to say that they are working to say that there is a problem and you should resolve it. So we got through the testing period here. What are some things that I miss that you recommend testing for that you can share with everybody else? And what other questions can I help answer, you know, before we move on to the next one? One of the things I forgot to mention is the combustion safety venting. So absolutely, back to this here. So typically, you know, if somebody doesn't have a vented water heater or a sealed combustion water heater, typically we'll just say, look, you know, there are rebates. They're pretty good rebates, especially for income qualified, depending on, you know, where you live in your utility. But, you know, you should just get rid of that naturally drafting water heater and get a sealed combustion. That's usually step number one. But you're right, if it's a newer one or you're going to keep it, then you want to do that combustion analyzation testing to make sure that there isn't any spillage, especially if you've got other additional fans like upstairs, like a range hood pulling air and pulling up CO2 and humidity. So thank you for bringing that up. And yeah, you know, radon in drinking water is certainly one that I think is important and to take a look at. And I think a lot of the, you know, standard water quality testers can't capture radon. You have to, I think you have to do it right away. I'm not too sure how that works, but you know, radon can sneak up in drinking water too, and should be evaluated in high areas where there could be a radon concern. So thank you for bringing that up. And then there was another comment here on sump pumps, and absolutely, especially as the climate gets worse and we're heading into more and more flooding issues, you know, you want to make sure that that sump pump is tested and working, and that there's one in place as well. So thank you for bringing that one up too. All right, so moving on. So we went through some ideas, and some of you shared some great stuff, and we'd love to see more comments added too, both live and recorded, on testing. So now we're getting into more of, you know, all the things we've put into our homes that we can try to think through during the renovation process, the rehab process, and especially new construction, where we're starting with a fresh palette. But hopefully through the testing, we've identified there's a problem. Now we need to use better, potentially as one strategy is use better materials. So basically we're talking about prevention, stopping pollution from even occurring in the first place through some of these preventative measures. So one thing that we have is the insulation that we specify. And this is a really cool little chart here that was done. And we're going to be doing a webinar on this in the future. And so it tries to break down, you know, from the energy standpoint, the R value, which is important for making decisions. But then it also looks at how much it costs to install. And this was made or kind of during the labor shortage, but not the material shortage. And then is it required special, you know, skills, and then the material side, which we'll get into in another category, but then also, you know, again, just this sort of color coding on transparency of what's in the material and the health impacts of the insulation. And then they also, well, it looks like my link might have broke here, but they also have one for, and if you follow the link to the report, they also have one for sealants, right? So that's what that was supposed to show, is caulks and sealants, and again, just how healthy they are versus ones that are unhealthy. So very important when we're putting our insulation specs together, not just energy efficiency, but also health as well. And then we're also going to be looking at wood products and all the wood that's going into a home or a building, and whether it's going to be off-gassing formaldehyde, and whether the wood is sealed, which it can be sealed, you know, in the field with like a low VOC sealant. These things are going to be complying with the section 01350 or California Air Resource Board CARB 2 certification. So it's a statewide certification through California, and it covers a lot of things, not just formaldehyde and wood, but it's something to look out for. I know when I went and bought my house, one of the things I did is went and opened up the cabinet and I looked in it, and sure enough, there was this nice little KCMA sticker, which was really cool, because that basically means it's in compliance with some version of that CARB 2 standard to say reduced formaldehyde wood within that. So again, simple things we can do to keep VOCs low when we're speccing cabinets and wood or replacing them, or when you're evaluating a home and you say, hey, this is a great selling feature. You've got these low, you know, safer formaldehyde sources. Paints, right? In the past, paints would just be called low VOC or ZOVOC. We'd get the MSDS report and you'd be on your way, right? And so now we're heading into a world with zero VOC paints. And I forgot to put it here, but there's actually negative VOC paints as well that actually take VOCs out of the air. And there's even negative VOC drywalls that take formaldehyde out of the air and capture it in the house and put it into the substrate. And they're doing that on the exterior of buildings to capture outdoor air pollution and potentially carbon dioxide as well. But anyway, so in the past, you just saw this nice little zero VOC. You're like, how true is that? I don't really know. Well, now, especially with like LEED or Enterprise Green or GreenStar or any program, or just for your own safety, you know, your client, you know, make sure it's got that some kind of certification. A lot of times that's Green Guard now or Green Guard Gold certification. That's going to ensure that what it's saying, you know, is actually true. And the same goes for flooring now, right? And so vinyl flooring and certain types of flooring can be an asthma trigger. It puts off certain VOCs and be an asthma-driven trigger. And so there's a lot of concerns there. So you can look for something like the floor score, just to make sure that it works and that it has those lower VOCs. I lost the picture here again, but the most important part is that for carpeting that's being specified, you want to make sure it has the Carpet and Rug Institute seal of approval. I think it's CRI. So again, lower VOCs in carpeting. But, you know, carpeting itself can be an asthma trigger. It catches pet dander, dust, and also it has to be thrown away at some point. So we always recommend looking at hard surfaces and substrates. And also, we talked about this, so if you can, everyone think back to the last session we did, but we got the little energy sign there. What's one of the potential energy benefits of using these hard surfaces and avoiding carpeting? So thank you. So yeah, the answer is passive solar, right? So if we've got wood or concrete especially, we can absorb the heat into it, and we can have it, you know, radiate out at night and, you know, save energy. Other ways to stop pollution at their source and VOCs is humidity control, right? Relative humidity, dew point, trying to stay around 40, but within that 40 to 60 range is very important. And right now, you know, we know from viral airborne COVID-19 and influenza, we know that lower humidity in the wintertime can certainly cause that to spread. And there are types of molds that spread. So it's very important to humidify in the winter, but in the summertime, it's very important to dehumidify. And so again, we want to stop molds and mildews from growing by keeping that dew point ideally under that 60 threshold, somewhere around 50 or so. That can change on a lot of different things with the way your building is and where you're located, but you kind of want to be right in that sweet spot. Now I got the little water symbol there on the dry side because a lot of these humidifiers can waste a lot of water. And so there are now more water efficient humidifiers out there that can waste less water and still be helpful. So make sure to look for those so that you're not wasting water. The big problem had always been on the keeping humidity out and not necessarily trying to stay more humid in the winter, but now that is a problem now with COVID-19. But a lot of this has to do with right sizing of heating and cooling equipment, especially the cooling side. Having an improperly sized AC is going to cause significant humidity issues. But there's other strategies beyond that to continue to keep it. Also, what we do know is that with higher spikes in humidity lead to increases in volatile organic compounds, which could be like formaldehyde from wood surfaces and you name it. So there is an interplay there between humidity and between the VOCs as well. So one other thing I wanted to show is, in getting back to the air conditioning side of thing, we have projects still to this day, and a lot of them affordable housing, that have left air conditioning out. And when you look at the heat dome situation that's occurring across the globe, in Portland as well, and Portland wasn't a climate that had a lot of air conditioning, and now unfortunately people are suffering for that, because what happens is, on this scale here provided by NOAA, is that as humidity increases and as heat increases along with relative humidity or dew point, you can have significant health problems where your body cannot sweat out. And so this is a problem. People in their own homes, unfortunately, have been sent to the hospital or died because of this. So it's unfortunate, but air conditioning and humidity control is moved from a fun luxury to now a vital health problem on a warming planet, and we've got to address it when we consider people's health to make sure that people stay safe. Fireplaces can be a total wreck on green homes, and we try to make sure that they are removed. But if you're going to have them, make sure that they're going to be done right to keep you and your clients safe. So the very first thing is just ensuring you've got an indoor air plus certified unit that's got the proper combustion intake, right? You want to get the air in and you want to get the bad air out. That's, and that's different for every type of unit, but that's just the basic assessment of it. So you can check out PNNL, great resources there. As always, we have many of those references to make sure you're using the proper one or retrofitting it in a proper way to keep clients safe. Now here is a nice photo of my fireplace that I enjoy. And this is a zero combustion, a zero emission fireplace. And it also can put out heat if I need it, though it's very inefficient. And this is just basically an electric fireplace that kind of still, to some extent, has at least the aesthetics of what appeals to people for fireplaces. So if you really need that fireplace and you can work with your clients, maybe you can talk them into doing an electric one, or you can go in a more expensive route and you can check out these newer fireplaces that honestly fooled me. I was on site filming this project and I thought there was a real fireplace. The steam, the smoke, the heat, everything was there, but it's a steam LED electric fireplace. And this was filmed in like 2017. So there's been way more cool ones that have come out on the market. We just covered it with our friend Sean a few weeks ago on a full electrification of existing homes webinar we did. But if you follow it there, I have it set at 32 minutes, you can go in and there's a discussion on some of these different applications and setups. Again, if your clients want to have that fireplace, but you want to be healthy. Now, if you're going to go with wood burning, a couple benefits and negatives. You can see I've got the little tilted health sign here. The negative is unfortunately, there's a study, and I put it into the resources links there, that has come out from a university that perhaps the Indoor Air Plus program from EPA has not been properly assessing these wood burning stoves. And we're going to hopefully do a webinar on that. It's very concerning, and it makes me wonder about the rest of the Indoor Air Plus program in general. There's no proof of anything there, but who knows? So, so be careful with the wood burning stoves. Our friends over in the European Union have released the EU 2022. And so you can take a look. I have a link for that too in the resource link. And that is supposed to be another way you can get properly certified stoves to make sure they're sealed and that they're safe. But another potential health benefit of the stove is, especially for all electric projects, right? You have a winter outage and it takes a lot of energy, even with batteries. And so this could be one way to stay safe, is to have a sealed combustion electric stove to keep the house, or a wood stove to keep the house heated in a more sustainable way with sustainably harvested wood during an outage, to help protect health and to keep the home warm in colder climates that are all electric, or even homes that have no backup. Even your gas furnace can't blow air if it goes out. So this could be a way to stay safe during a outage and to stay healthy. And then stopping radon from coming in, right? Very important. Radon, again, like I said, is going to come up anywhere, and we're seeing it more and more, even in EPA zones that are designated, I believe, a 1 or a 3. I get them mixed up. We're seeing radon problems. So from the new construction side on the left, you can see you want to put in this nice little gravel there, and you put in a pipe, and then follow me all the way to the right, and that pipe goes up into the attic, and there's a passive plug up there. And then, you have a junction box to someday in the future install a fan if you're doing the proper monitoring to see if, oh, okay, eventually we do have a radon problem. Now let's install a fan, and it's like pre-radon ready. But you have to be doing the monitoring. We have these in place in a lot of LEED homes, but if nobody's monitoring the radon, who would know anyway? So, and then in the middle there, you can see a system that's installed on the exterior of the house. And you can see that it's, just venting, it's punctured into the slab and just venting on an existing home, which we recommend doing on homes as well. And then there's some strategies in the link I gave you from LEED, especially, where you can do some other things like build a garage under the house or elevate the building. But there's some different radon strategies there too. And then, compartmentalization is very important. So air sealing, you might think that's just an energy efficiency issue, but on multifamily and row housing, this is not just an energy issue. This is a health issue, right? You don't want, especially with COVID-19, you don't want whatever is going through the air. People are smoking something, burning something, breathing out COVID-19 and other pandemic issues that will occur in the future. And then it gets sucked into your unit. So you want to have units that are totally sealed off from all the other units, called compartmentalization, not just for energy, but to keep you safe and healthy and comfortable. And also in the past, what we would have is we would have the ventilation system in the hallway be used as the thing that served the units. So now we can't do that. That's a no-no on LEED and enterprise, and just for good practice. So you want to have the sealed door threshold, even though the door is going into a common space that's conditioned. You want to treat it like it's its own house, right? And so every little unit now needs to be their own home, totally sealed. And so there's some strategies to do that. We provided you on the Dropbox link. And then we also have a webinar on that. And we hope to do another one too, to get it updated to some future standards on what you do if you've got wood or metal or existing units to keep that air leakage, out. So again, we went through the testing period. What's going on? How do we evaluate? More on the existing home side. Then we went into sort of the preventative, more on the new construction side. So what other preventative measures did I not discuss that you would recommend to everybody? And what questions do you have that I can, help answer? So yeah, just as we were talking about, but from a filtration standpoint, right, getting into sort of the things that are going to filter out the inevitable pollutant. No matter what we do, we're going to have pollutants in our house. So just from looking at these two photos here, top or bottom, which one is going to have better filtration and why to get rid of some of the pollution that we're going to have in our home? Right, yeah, so you all are pretty smart. It's the top one. It's that thick medium filter. But so this is MERV filtration for those of you who aren't aware, and I put a little link in there you can follow from EPA to learn about it. You sort of have your 4s and your 6 MERV level that come with the filter standard that don't do much. Just stop the furnace from getting damaged. And then you have your sort of 10s, your 8s and your 10s, which is where the green programs kick in that start to filter allergens, some VOCs. And then you really have your 13s and your 16s, which start to filter two really important things, especially this year, which is wildfire smoke, PM 2.5, and COVID-19 and influenza and airborne viruses, which you want to have. So, the thing is that the thicker these filters get, the more they can damage an improperly designed system. So think back to the last session we did on HVAC. We talked about HVAC 2.0. We need to make sure our systems are properly designed, that there's static pressure, and that, you can even get the thinner medium filters that have higher MERV ratings. They just have to be changed more often, and they could damage the system. So you really have to have that conversation with your HVAC contractor, make sure the system is designed correctly, and make sure it can handle the thicker filters as well, so you can keep that static pressure in the right spot. I would say mostly lower, and that the filter is also properly installed and tight, and that the ducts are sealed. Otherwise, all of those pollutants will leak out anyway, so it won't make any difference. Passive ventilation, is a strategy you can use in the colder climates. Not so much. You can use it in the summer. It saves a lot of energy, but it is a strategy that can be used to properly design a home based on wind flows in certain areas, where windows can be opened in certain places a certain time of the day, and is also a passive cooling strategy. And you can get that fresh air coming in and meet your ventilation standards without it. However, unfortunately, still to this day, the architects and designers and engineers I say, what's your ventilation strategy? They say, open a window. Terrible idea. Why? Cold weather climate, it gets too cold. Hot climates, it gets too hot. Outdoor pollution from cars, outdoor pollution that just comes over from wildfires. Unfortunately now, we keep our windows open at night, and we were getting high levels of wildfire smoke in our house. Very sad. And so we had to close it and turn on the ventilation system. But unfortunately, a lot of older homes and projects were designed with the window theory in mind. And so now there's a lot of negatives. So I would, if any of you, I don't know much about passive ventilation. I don't work a lot in warmer climates. So if any of you know any great resources, I'd recommend you share them in the chat with others who are interested. I think it's something that's worth having as a strategy in tandem with the ones we're going to further discuss here. So much like the energy efficiency pyramid, but different, you have sort of your ventilation pyramid. And what I mean by that is, you go from, again, sort of the cheapest, easiest thing you can do that doesn't work as well, that has other negative downsides, which I guess the window would be really, the window would be on the bottom there. So, but anyway, and then you move up the ladder to smart ventilation, which is the best. And you can see here, we've got our half sun. So you're talking about significant energy penalties for doing these kinds of things. And then you can see potential energy benefits, or, way less for doing some of these other ones. One way or another, unless you put someone in a windowless room, they're going to ventilate that space, and they're going to use that window, hopefully, if they have to stay safe, which is probably the biggest energy penalty, as well as, one that we certainly don't recommend, doing. So let's take a look at the first one, and there's some different strategies to get there. So again, looking at these two different kitchens and thinking about this, which one has the better health strategy and why? Or which one is, you can say it another way, which one is missing a health component and what is it? Yeah, exactly. So you've got this range hood here on the bottom, right? Hopefully venting outside, you don't see it recirculating. You see this kitchen at the top, at least no range hood or anything you can see to ventilate. So, this is a good example, especially if you see these microwave range hoods or these other range hoods. Open up the cabinet and see if there's a duct that's exhausting, and especially exhausting outside. That's your first number one thing you can do to check to make sure that it was done correctly. And then after that, going back to what we said, the testing side, having it tested and ideally hitting 100 CFM. The other thing you have to look out for these things is dBA for sound, right? This could be a sound quality issue. And if it's really loud, that might be a sign that it's not ducted correctly. So those are kind of a 2-for-1, better air quality and proper ducting. And then also on these things is that there are other strategies you can use, just a total whole home ventilation system, which we're going to get into, that can vent the kitchen, but it just needs to make sure it has enough draw. Some codes allow for 25 CFM, and I can tell you right now, that's never going to remove enough pollutants from burnt food or PM 2.5. Even 100 CFM, which I have pouring in even in my house, doesn't do anything to remove that when it's part of a larger central system and it's pouring just a portion of that, into the room. So there is a chart. This is a really cool write-up that I got from Scott Farbman of Database plus DBHMS, and I really appreciate him sharing this with me. And I want to kind of end with this, and then we'll move on to the next session in the next week, or once we finish the cooking side. But this is sort of a quote that he gave me, and he's using an IAQ device as monitored, as you can see here, and it's located approximately 10 to 20 feet away from the cooking surface across the kitchen space. And as I quote, "We have a standard 30-inch gas range with a window directly adjacent to the cooking surface that I open when cooking despite outdoor weather conditions, right, to stay safe. Approximately 3 to 4 feet away, we have a direct vent microwave rated at 385 CFM, above the range that does provide some exhaust, but it isn't super effective. Since the microwave is in line with the upper cabinets, it does not cover the entire cooking surface like a range hood would. I have an adjacent window, again, next to the microwave, but even with opening that, we still, and as you can see by the IAQ on the left here, you can see the PM 2.5, that's the wildfire smoke coming from your cooking. You can see on the right, carbon dioxide, right? We don't want high carbon dioxide in our home either. Not dangerous to breathe, but makes us sleepy and groggy. And so you can see here, they still have these massive spikes from their gas stove, and causing these, these CO2 issues. So I really appreciate Scott sharing this data with me to just really show what these spikes are from the gas cooking. So obviously the strategy here is moving towards electric and induction. And think back to the first session we did, right? This was first and foremost an energy efficiency strategy, but now we're talking about a health strategy, right? To reduce the PM 2.5 and carbon dioxide and potentially carbon monoxide that will be given off by a gas stove. But I will tell you from my own experience on electric stoves, especially where you spill some water or burn some food, we do also get elevated PM 2.5 on these stoves. And so that's why the range hood is very important to have, even when you're all electric, because you still can get it and it can still be difficult to get rid of. It's just not as bad as a gas stove either. So with that, I am going to pause, and we're going to finish out the remaining items. We're going to finish out the remaining items at our next session, which we're almost done with health, thankfully, and that's totally fine. And I just wanted to say real quick, if you're looking for your continuing ed in the future on demand, make sure to take that quiz with an 80% passing rate. And if you're looking for your certificates live right now, again, go to certs at gutenbergcerts.com, or rather check your spam. Make sure you mark them as safe. You'll get your certificate there. And as always, a huge thanks to our board of directors, our volunteers, our new executive director, Jose Reina, and all of our sponsors, especially our top tier sponsors, Mitsubishi Electric, Build, Equinox, CERV, and Rheem, heat pump water heaters, Prestige, all to help make your projects healthier and more energy efficient.